Science 7th grade test. Unit 1. In the 1800s, two scientists, Theodor Schwann and Matthias Schleiden, studied different types of organisms. After many years of studying a great variety of organisms, they drew similar but independent conclusions about their observations. Schwann studied animals and concluded that all animals are made of cells. Schleiden studied plants and concluded that all plants are made of cells. What statement was developed most directly from these conclusions and is part of the cell theory? A. The functions of living things occur in cells. B. Cells exist only in multicellular organisms. C. Living things are composed of cells. Or D. Cells contain hereditary information. Number 2. Which of the following is the least complex level of organization in the human body? Organ, cell, system, tissue. Number 3. Based on the cell theory, one can assume that cells reproduce. Which of the following tenets in the cell's theory best validates this assumption? A. All cells come from pre-existing cells by division. B. All known living things are made up of cells. C. All cells are basically the same in chemical composition. Or D. All the energy flow of life occurs within cells. Question 4. Which of the following is the most important characteristic of a rubber glove during a scientific experiment? F. Reliable grip. G. Heat conductor. H. Protective layer. J. Hand cleaner. Question 5. In science class, Michaela was studying the vascular system of plants. She cut the bottom off of a celery stick and then placed the celery in colored water. She left the celery in the cup for 24 hours. When she observed the celery, she noticed that there were colored tubes in the celery stalk, which she knew was the xylem tissue. She cut off a piece of celery and observed it under a dissecting microscope and drew her observations. What type of investigation was Michaela conducting? Is this descriptive, comparative, quantitative, controlled? Question 6. Hundreds of years ago, people thought living organisms began life spontaneously. When flies were observed on a piece of dead meat, it was thought that the flies had spontaneously arose from the meat. In that time, it was not understood that flies had laid eggs on the meat and that the hatched eggs is where the flies they saw had come from. Since that time, the cell theory was developed. Which part of the cell theory would the idea of spontaneous life contradict, meaning is not true? F. All organisms are composed of one or more cells. G. All cells come from pre-existing cells. H. The cell is the basic unit of structure and function in living organisms. J. All cells have the ability to react outside. Which one's not true? Number 7. The process of two daughter cells being produced from a parent cell is shown in the image. Which part of the cell theory does this image best represent? A. All organisms are composed of one or more cells. B. All cells come from pre-existing cells. C. The cell is the basic unit of structure and function in living organisms. D. All cells have the ability to react outside. Question 8. Plants are complex organisms that are composed of multiple layers of organization. Which of the following best represents the organization of the root system from most complex to least complex? F. Root system is root to phloem to cell. G. Root system, cell, phlegm, root. H. Root system, phlegm, root, cell. Or J. Root system, root, cell, phlegm. Question 9. The graphic below shows an unlabeled animal cell. In which location would genetic material most likely be found? Question 10. The cell organelle responsible for providing energy for cell processes in plant and animal cells is the ribosome, chloroplast, mitochondria, nucleus. Question 11. Some students drop a glass beaker during an investigation and it breaks. The student should tell the teacher right away, clean it up right away, use paper towels to clean up the glass, use a broom and dustpan to clean up the glass. Question 12. Which lab activity always requires the use of safety goggles? F. Using a microscope. G. Using a hot plate to heat liquids. H. Washing laboratory equipment. J. Handling live animals in the lab. Which one needs goggles? 13. Which of the following is not appropriate behavior in the science classroom? A. Wearing safety goggles while participating in the frog dissection. B. Throwing paper and putting your hands on other students. C. Following all given directions, both written and verbal. Or D. Recycling paper. Which one is not appropriate? Question 14. The graphic below is a model of a building. The limitations of this model prevent it from being used as F. Way to locate the exits in the building. G. Way to get out of the building quickly. H. Way to know the total number of rooms in the building. J. Way to know how many people can work in the building. Which one does this map not help? 15. Jim thinks that the more air pressure in a basketball, the higher it will bounce. To investigate the hypothesis, he collects several basketballs and an air pump with a pressure gauge. How should Jim test this hypothesis? A. Bounce basketballs with different amounts of force from the same height. B. Bounce basketballs having different air pressures from the same height. C. Bounce basketballs having the same air pressure at different angles from the floor. Or D. Bounce basketballs having the same amount of air pressure from different heights. 16. Which materials list is most appropriate for Jim's investigation? What does he need? F. Safety goggles, a triple beam balance, and a meter stick. G. Safety goggles, a force plate, and a meter stick. H. Safety goggles, a meter stick, air pressure gauge. Or J. Safety goggles, meter stick, protractor. 17. A field geologist collected data for 2 nuggets of copper and determined their density. Which 2 pieces of equipment did the geologist most likely use to determine the density of the copper nuggets? Which one would help him the most? A. Balance in a graduated cylinder. B. Metric ruler and beaker. C. Thermometer and Erlenmeyer flask. Or D. Specimen bottle and tweezers. 18. Anne has an aquarium in which she keeps goldfish. She notices that the fish are very active sometimes, but not at others. She wonders what affects the activity of the fish. What is a hypothesis she could test about factors that affect the activity of the fish? F. The more you feed the fish, the larger the fish become. G, the more active the fish, the more food they need. H, the more oxygen in the water, the larger the fish become. J, the more light on the aquarium, the more active the fish. Question 19. Which statement describes the organization of living organisms? A, all organisms are composed of many cells, which are the basic units of structure, but do not perform life functions. B, all organisms are composed of one or more cells, which are the basic units of structure and perform essential life functions. C, all organisms are composed of many cells that have basic units with unique structures and functions. D, all organisms are composed of one or more cells with the same shape and purpose but are not the basic units of structure. 20. Which cell structure allows materials to move in and out of both plants and animal cells? F, cytoplasm. G, nucleus. H, vacuole. J, cell membrane. 21. Which of the following diagrams best represents the levels of organization of multicellular organisms? Which one shows the levels of organization? 22. Which structures differentiate plant cells from animal cells? Meaning, which numbers are different between plants and animals? 23. The two knobs used for focusing the image include fine adjustment knob and A, coarse adjustment knob, B, diaphragm, C, stage, D, objective lens. 24. Total magnification is the product of two values, power of eyepiece and power of what? F, ocular lens, G, objective lens, H, illumination, J, light source. Question 25. A microscope is set to 10 times eyepiece and 40 times objective. What is the total magnification? End of test.